It's time for Northwest Georgia Sports Live on Talk Radio WLAQ AM 1410 and the new 96.9 FM. Here's your hosts, Matt Davis and Ian Griffin.
All right. I guess my first question as we get ready to launch this episode of This Week in Northwest Georgia Football, our high school football picks show, is this thing on?
Right.
We had a little bit of a snafu getting this thing going today, and I guess that's just kind of the growing pains that you experience when you're trying something new. But I think we're all systems go at this point in time. So glad to have you with us here for this live episode and our first ever edition that is just a internet only broadcast on YouTube, the WLAQ Radio YouTube channel, and then not to mention we're also on our Facebook live feed. At least we think we are at this point in time.
We hope so. Let us know. Hit us up in the comments.
No doubt. Of course, comments are enabled on our Facebook stream, but not on YouTube, because right now we're not sophisticated enough to figure out how to get it on the air on both platforms at the time we said we were. So we certainly can't manage the comments on two platforms at the same time at this point. But we'll get there. But Ian, speaking of getting there, it is time for the high school football season to begin. As a matter of fact, at this point in time, it's already started. You had Corky Kell Classic games that took place last night. Watched a little bit of that action on television, which was exciting. And then at the same time, you've got Friday Night Lights getting set to shine coming up tomorrow night. Today is Thursday, just ahead of the high school football season, which is super exciting.
A few games tonight as well, right?
That's right.
Yeah. I know Rock Martin, Cedartown are throwing down on a Thursday night.
And not to mention, locally speaking, you've got Pepperell going up to Tunnel Hill to face Northwest Whitfield. So that's a great, Thursday evening matchup that you could go check out up there. And we got a little bit of, and I forget what the term you call it, but, the weather feels really nice this morning. It's going to be hot this evening for the games, but we got a little preview of fall today and yesterday.
Yeah, a little false fall, if you will. The humidity just decided to vacate the premises for a little while. We'll take that as long as it wants to last.
No question about it. Well, we've got a huge slate of games that we're going to be talking about over the course of our show today. And again, we invite you to the inaugural edition of this year's This Week in Northwest Georgia Football. But we've had This Week in Northwest Georgia Football as long as I can remember. My dad started that show, when I was a kid, and that's pretty much what it's been called ever since. So we're glad to add a new layer to it this year with our YouTube channel and then also our Facebook Live. So carrying on the tradition, meanwhile, kind of moving forward, with today's technology and all that kind of stuff, which we're still obviously trying to figure out. But we're excited about it.
Working out the kinks. But we'll be shooting to get on the air at 10:30 on Thursdays on these platforms, and then we'll rebroadcast this on the radio Friday nights. And the coverage on Friday is going to be awesome. So Matt, I'd love for you to tell the listeners what they can expect on Friday nights.
Yeah, we've adjusted our Friday night coverage a little bit, as you referenced, but what we'll do is we'll start with the radio version of this program at 6 o'clock. It'll be about a 45-minute show where Ian and I get together and kind of give you our take on the weekend's action, give our picks, predictions, things of that sort, talk all things high school football from Northwest Georgia. And then at 6:45, we're going to have the radio version of a show that debuted yesterday on our YouTube channel and our Facebook Live. That's the Coach Grove Show. That'll start at 6:45, about a 30-minute program, and that will lead us right into the Tiger Tailgate, if you will, our live on-location pregame show for Darlington Tigers football, which will begin at 7:15. This week it'll be from Chris Hunter Stadium, and the same thing for next week as well. So 2 home games to open it up for the Darlington Tigers. And then at 7:30, man, toe meets leather, and it's on. And then after the evening's action, we'll have a brief wrap-up show from whatever, place we're at with the Darlington Tigers, and we'll turn it over to Lynn and Austin Butler for the Rome Orthopedic Center High School Football Scoreboard Show. So essentially, you've got high school football coverage on WLAQ on Friday evenings from 6 p.m. all the way until midnight. So if you like high school football, you're going to get 6 hours of it every week during the high school football season.
I think that's a menu a lot of people can handle here in Northwest Georgia. So excited about the season starting, Matt. And like you said, we've got a lot of games. It's week 0, right? That's what it's been dubbed, week 0. So we're going to get to know a lot about these local teams, a lot of new coaches, a lot of new faces. So we're going to break these down the best we can as we learn what each one of our area teams have.
Yeah, it's that kind of crazy part of the season where you really kind of, in some ways, with some teams that have had a lot of turnover and things of that sort, just don't know what they have and all that kind of stuff. And when you get some of these non-region matchups early on, you see some teams that you don't necessarily see all the time. You might see them a couple of years in a row, depending on the sequence of how everything's working out and all that kind of stuff. So it's really hard to predict these games in the early part of the season. And then as you get to know the teams a little bit, I wouldn't say it gets easy, but it gets a little easier. Yeah. And then you get into the playoffs and you're kind of back at square one where you started with some matchups you don't normally see and all that kind of stuff. So it's going to be a fun ride. Excited about it.
Absolutely. And it's a bit of a competition for me and Matt. You know, we keep up with the records and we see who is victorious at the end.
Yeah, as a matter of fact, you came up with the sweep until we got into the basketball tournament.
That's right, and I never win that. I never win that, ever.
So I tell you what we're going to do, man. We're going to go ahead and take a break and hear a word from our sponsor that's been with us on this show for a long time, and we appreciate that. And we're going to take a break, and we come back. We're going to do what we came here to do.
Let's pick some games.
We're going to talk some games. And we are going to, have some fun. So glad you're with us here on this episode of This Week in Northwest Georgia Football. Let's hear a word from our sponsor, and we'll be back here momentarily.
Shop for your next car, truck, or SUV at Riverside Auto Group. Check out riversideautogroup.com today to browse their selection or visit with them in person at Riverside Chevrolet Buick GMC in Rome, Riverside Toyota in Rome, and the all-new Riverside Buick GMC Cadillac in Cartersville. Locally owned and operated by the Welburn family since 1974. That's Riverside Auto Group. Visit riversideautogroup.com.
How you like that bumper music?
I love it.
Does it get you psyched up and ready to pick some high school football games?
I don't know if I want to, pick football, talk about the news. I don't know. But it's nice, man. It's soothing.
Well, the high school football season's on. We'll give that, from our studio audience, a nice round of applause. Yeah, baby. Yes. It's here. Let's go. It's go time. All right. Well, let's just go ahead and jump into this, man. I should have thought about this ahead of time, and it's always in the moment when you start thinking about things. Oh, we need this for the show, but we always have a referee whistle. And since we're recording this a little bit differently, I forgot to come up with that. So while we're on the air, let's see.
Are you going to give it the horn?
Yeah, maybe. You want to use that or no?
I mean,
a record yank. What else we got? Well, we don't want to use crickets chirping. We'll go with the horn.
Okay.
Okay.
All right.
So at the sound of the horn, Ian is going to pick our first game of the season. That's going to get annoying. I got a feeling.
All right.
I just saw some people drop off the screen.
Well, the Armurchie Indians travel to Gordon Central for the first game we're going to pick, and the Ballou era begins. Eric Ballou is the new head coach taking over at Armurchie. And this is an Armurchie team that we've seen make steady progress the last few seasons, picking up more and more wins, playing with more confidence. They play in a really, really tough region, so it's not easy once they get into region play. So they want to build their confidence up early. Gordon Central has been floundering for as long as I can remember. I feel like this is a case of two programs. One's treading water and staying in the same spot, and one's trying to build something here. You got players like Rylan Steen and Jacob Seagroves. These guys can go out and make plays for their team, and I think Armurchie gets the win here on the road.
Yeah, we'll see what happens. One of the most interesting, and I know you referenced this, in our opening segment, is talking about the coaching carousel. One of the most interesting things that happened in the offseason that got people's attention was the new head coach of Gordon Central. They picked up Lenny Gregory, whose former team, Collins Hill, won a state championship just a couple of years ago. And when you look at Gordon Central, the last 2 years, they didn't win a game. So you're asking, what is the appeal for Lenny Gregory to come from a program that's had the level of success that Collins Hill has had to go to a struggling program like that? What's going on there? I'm just really curious about that situation. So it's going to be interesting to see if this very, very successful head coach can kind of get this program headed in the right direction, because as you mentioned, they've been really struggling for a long time, and you hate to see that. was certainly rooting for Coach Hamilton and what we felt like he could do there. But it just never kind of transpired to the kind of success that we thought we might see in that situation. So really intriguing matchup. Two new head coaches. Amerchi 3-7 last year. Coach Green was really building a solid foundation for this team. Stepped down, towards the end of the season. And of course, you got the new coach coming in. He doesn't have, as far as I could find, a lot of head coaching experience, but he's been a part of a lot of really successful programs. They've got some good players coming back. I think this team is really going to continue to move forward. I like the things that he's had to say in some of the media that I have read about Coach Ballou. So I'm a believer in the Indians, and I think they're going to get off to a good start. So one pick, we don't have a difference yet.
And they may have the best hashtag in the area, hashtag Ballou Crew.
I like that.
I know, right? It's pretty solid. So, yeah, I think we both agree here. We think that the Armurchie Indians vanquish the Warriors.
We're moving on to the next one. And we may take comments here from our folks that are on our Facebook live stream. If you want us to ditch the horn there, we'll be glad to do that. But it's what we've got for now, so we're sticking with it until somebody says, I'm going to change the channel unless you stop using that horn. But this next game, Ian, is going to be the Chattooga Indians going up to Lafayette to play the Ramblers. I'm sure they still have I guess they call it the Rambler Wreck. It's kind of like the Ramblin' Wreck that they get out on the field, and it's exciting, and it's one of those things that's a tradition about high school football that's really fun to see in person. The Indians last year, Ian, they were 2-8, had a tough season. On and off the field, they had the tragedy during the season where they lost some players in a tragic accident. Yeah. It was just a really, really tough time for the team. So now they'll try to bounce back this year with a new head coach, Rune Gable. You always know that the Indians are going to have some athletic kids. They do have some speed on this team. I was looking at some of the names on the roster. Quarry Gibson is one of the names that jumps out. Dan Meyer, the quarterback, he can sling the rock pretty well. So they've got some nice pieces on this team, but can they put it all together and get the push they need and all that kind of stuff and use their athleticism and speed to score some points and stop some teams? We'll see what happens. Meanwhile, the Ramblers, they beat the Indians by 30 last year. And, I don't know what they have back, but looking at that score really caught my attention. So I think this one could go either way, but I'm going to go with the Lafayette Ramblers.
All right. Well, yeah, another fresh face on the sidelines. The Chattooga Indians, they're going Gable. Rune Gable has taken over the reins for this Indians team. Again, coming off of a rough campaign last year, emotionally and on the field. So a change could be good for these players, I think, and they get a fresh start. But again, you were mentioning this game last year in the opener. They got thumped at home by 30 points. Lafayette had a really good season in 2021 and then kind of came back down to earth last year, but they handled Chattooga in that opener. Who knows what they are bringing back? I'm not that familiar with this program, but something tells me they're going to get the win in front of their home crowd. So I'm also going with the Ramblers.
Okay, we're not having a lot of drama here so far. 2 picks, and we've picked the same. And really, I look at those 2 games of being games that potentially could be close games.
Yeah, no doubt.
Kind of neat. And we have our first comment here on our live feed on Facebook Live. And I'll go ahead and mention I have the comments turned off on YouTube and only turned on Facebook because that way we can monitor them. A little bit too much confusion trying to monitor them both places. So if you want to comment and, express your opinion on our feed, make sure that you go to the Facebook Live version of this. And we've got a comment here from Brian Barcombe. He chimed in and said that he thinks Amerchi is going to win also, and he threw a score out there, 17-7. That sounds pretty reasonable.
Yeah,
to me.
I like that. Yeah. I don't think it's going to be a shootout by any means. So ought to be a good ball game.
We appreciate you tuning in, Brian. We're going to go ahead and pick one more game before we take a break. And that is going to be the Coosa Eagles going up to Southeast Whitfield to take on the Raiders. Coosa at 3-7 last year, Southeast Whitfield Raiders. How do you see it? I'm not doing that anymore. It's annoying me.
Self-regulated horn exclusion there by Matt Davis. Yeah, Coosa travels up to face Southeast Whitfield. This game was decided by 7 points last season with the Raiders getting the W at Branch Bragg Field. Listening to the comments from Coach Joey Mathis, for the first time in his tenure there, he's excited about the depth and the talent level and what they can go out and achieve this season. He feels like they can compete for one of the 4 playoff spots in Region 7A Division 1. It was a close game last year, and Coach feels good. I'm going to take Coosa to go on the road and score the W.
This is one of those ones where I look at my pick and I'm like, I'm not sure about this. I'll go ahead and I'll leave the drama to the side. I'm going in the opposite direction, but I kind of regret making that pick because I actually, we always pick this ahead of time. What you picked as we start the show is what you stick with. So I'm going to keep with the rules of how we handle this thing. But I wish I would have picked Coosa in this game because I totally believe in Joey Mathis. He's a really positive guy. He coaches them hard. I believe he can have success at Coosa. One of the issues when you look at last season, they had some good stretches, but they had a couple of tough ones as well. So they're looking, to try to get some consistency going with this team, which you really didn't see a whole lot of last year. They were kind of streaky, and they'd love to get things started on a good start. Talking about Southeast Whitfield, remember a couple of years ago, they weren't even playing in a region because they were trying to get this thing going. So I think this could be an opportunity here for Coosa, but I picked the other way, so I'll stick with that. I'll go with the Raiders.
You went with the home team, and one of the things that Coosa really struggled with were the self-inflicted penalties, the turnovers that killed drives, that limited their scoring. So I know that's been a big focus for them in the offseason. I think the Eagles get it right.
All right, man, we're going to take another break. You are listening to, I should say you're watching. Old Habits Die Hard. Today It's more of a watching, viewing kind of situation. But whether you're on Facebook Live or our YouTube channel, we're glad to have you. And again, as we mentioned earlier, we're super glad to have Riverside Toyota as the Riverside Auto Group as our sponsor here for this program this year. Again, we certainly appreciate that, and we will hear a word from them right now to thank them.
Shop for your next car, truck, or SUV at Riverside Auto Group. Check out riversideautogroup.com today to browse their selection or visit with them in person at Riverside Chevrolet Buick GMC in Rome, Riverside Toyota in Rome, and the all-new Riverside Buick GMC Cadillac in Cartersville. Locally owned and operated by the Welburn family since 1974. That's Riverside Auto Group. Visit riversideautogroup.com.
All right, we welcome you back into the program this week in Northwest Georgia football. Appreciate everybody tuning in with us today. And next one's a fun one to talk about, and it's really cool that we get to talk about it in the very first week of the season, Ian, because when you talk about high school football, college football, one of the first things that comes to your mind is rivalry and tradition. And this is a massive rivalry tradition type situation in that it's the oldest continuously running rivalry game, and it's played on opening night. These teams have been playing since 1933, and I think they only missed maybe 1 year or 2 years in this run because of World War II. And we're talking about the Gordon Lee Trojans going up to Tri Bulldogs. Now, when you look at rivalries in terms of the record, it's pretty lopsided because Trine leads this one 65-22-1. So we'll see if it lives up to the rivalry status in terms of what you get on the field. But you never know. How do you see this one?
I mean, the Trine Bulldogs may be the favorite in Region 7A Division I. They return a lot of talent on the line of scrimmage. They've got a good quarterback, great running back. This was a team that got thumped by Darlington, but if they win that game, they're the region champs. And they bring back a lot of talent from that team. So I think this Trine team is stacked. I think they open the season up with a bang and blow out their rival in front of the home crowd.
Absolutely. And to add to that and to your point about the Darlington game, when you got a group coming back and they suffered a loss like that,
it's motivating.
It is very motivating. This is going to be a team that wants to come out of the gate strong and make a statement early, and getting, those guys back and having some depth on this team. I think they're going to be poised to make a serious run when you get into region play, and they'll start off with a bang. And everybody wants to beat a rival, and that sort of thing. So this is going to be a great atmosphere for a football game. This is certainly one, if you don't have one on your list of games to go to this weekend, that you might think about circling, because it'll just be a unique atmosphere and all that kind of stuff up at Trine. Sam R. McCain, what a place to go to a football game. It's going to be a tremendous amount of fun, and we agree on this one. So I'll also take the Trine Bulldogs. Probably not a big surprise there.
No, I thought you'd go in that direction. So one difference so far.
All right, let's move on to our next game. Could be a difference on this one because I could see this one going either way. But this is going to be happening this evening. As a matter of fact, the Pepperell Dragons are going up to Northwest Whitfield again this season. I believe there's some issues with a shortage of officials, so some games will get played on Thursdays, and who knows what night of the week, which you hate to see that happen, but it kind of is what it is. And so the Dragons are going up to Northwest Whitfield, a team that they struggled against last year in their non-region play. Dragons were 6-5 last year. Northwest Whitfield had an unusual season, Ian, that they started out gangbusters, and then they seemed to kind of fall apart when they got in their region. And when I looked at the teams in the region, there's some good teams, but I wouldn't have expected a crash quite as hard as they experienced in the region play and missing the playoffs. Because that region is pretty top heavy. When you look at Cedartown, it feels like it's Cedartown and then kind of everybody else.
True, absolutely. And these two teams locked horns to open the season last year, and Northwest Whitfield won that game big. Pepperell is adjusting to life post DJ Rogers. He is no longer there to carry the rock for the Dragons, and Coach Rick Hurst has said he likes the talent that he has on this team, but there's not a lot of Friday night experience, and they're going to have to learn on the fly, a little baptism under fire, and Dragons breathe fire. So I think they're going to do a good job being ready for this ball game. Coach Hurst does an excellent job over there, but going on the road and trying to win with that lack of experience makes me lean the other way. I think this is a much closer game than last year's contest, but I'm going to take the Bruins.
Yeah, and either way, no matter what the outcome of the game, I think this is a great opportunity for a young Dragons team because you want to be tested in your non-region games, and that was another point that I wanted to make. When you look at the Pepperell Dragons, how they've kind of hovered in the 500 range the last few years, I think that's a bit deceiving because you have to look under the hood and see the teams that they've played, and they're not afraid to schedule tough opponents because at the end of the day, when you got a program like a Pepperell Dragons, that's what you want because you want to prepare your team for what you might experience if you're fortunate enough to get to the postseason. Right. So you don't want to have a bunch of teams that you can just steamroll and not be prepared for when you get into tough region play in the playoffs.
Right, and we've seen it work both ways. We've seen teams who get tested early and then get into the region and just steamroll everyone, and those early season games really help them out when they get to the playoffs, and we've watched it work the other way. If you don't play tough opponents early, then you get into region play and you get knocked around a little bit. So I think coaches, we're seeing that trend more and more. Let's play up. Let's play bigger schools. Let's play some people who will test us. These losses, while we all want to go undefeated, these losses really don't matter that much because region play is what decides our path to the playoffs. So I like that they're taking on a big challenge, and I think the Dragons stand up and put up a real fight in this one. I just can't pick them to win.
And then the other layer to non-region game scheduling is when you are a team that's got a reputation like Pepperell has, and I don't know this from the coaching staff's perspective, but my hunch is that it's probably hard to get some teams to play sometimes.
Sure, because nobody wants to get beat by a team that's from a lower classification. Not a good look, right?
Exactly. So I'm going to go with Northwest Whitfield in this game. But again, this is one of those ones that's getting played tonight that I could see going either way. Sure. I'm just giving the home team the slight edge for getting this one. And they got a cool stadium up there. The Bruins, they've got a really, really neat statue of a Bruin there, which if you don't know what that is, it's a bear. And I've been up there for one game before. They've got a great atmosphere. It'll be a lot of fun. So we'll go ahead and pick one more, and then we'll take another break. And this one, boy, you want to talk about heated rivalries. And I have to ask this: did you see the what went viral based on what Rockmart put out in terms of their run through? What do you call those signs they run through before the games? I forgot. I went blank on that.
I mean, you know what I'm talking about? I have not seen this, but I know exactly what you're talking about.
Okay, well, basically it said something to the effect of Rome wasn't built in the day, but it was going to be ruined or something like that. And Rusty Mansell tweeted out that picture. It went viral. It was on Outkick.com. It was on USA Today. I mean, it has made the rounds. I'm sure it's probably ended up on television. And we all know how that turned out. It was a humbling experience for the Rockmart Yellow Jackets as they scored the opening points of the game and then just got drubbed by the Rome Wolves.
They did, and now they have to turn around and face a Cedartown team that came one play away from a state championship. And talking to both these coaches, Biff Parsons has built a heck of a program, and Coach Abrams has done the same thing at Cedartown. They have become consistent winners. And they're both replacing a lot, but Cedartown is replacing a lot less. And again, we just talked about it with Pepperell. Rockmart's kind of in the same boat. They lost a lot of guys who skill players who had a lot of Friday night experience, and they're bringing in new young guys who are talented, but they've got to get out there, and their first game Well, I mean, they had their experience with Rome last week, but now they've got to go face Cedartown, who has a little bit more depth and a little more experience coming back and is hungry to go make another run at a state title. It's a rivalry game, so you throw that kind of stuff out the window. Anything could happen, but conventional wisdom to me says Cedartown's going to win this thing at home.
Not that Rockmart wasn't focused last week against Rome, but I do think having an experience like that kind of, put you in a situation where you're going to have a different edge and all that kind of stuff. So I do think they can use that whole situation to their advantage. But I'm going to agree with you on this one. I think the depth that you're going to have with Cedartown, and I think they're also one of those teams, played for a championship last year. They feel like there was some unfinished business. I think that works in their favor in the respect that they're going to play with just an unbelievable edge throughout the season. I'm really looking forward to seeing what the Cedartown Bulldogs team does, and the Rockmart Yellow Jackets for that matter. And it's so great that you get, these big rivalry, exciting, matchups taking place at the beginning of the season, because you're going to be excited regardless of what kind of matchups you get. But getting some of those things is just the icing on the cake and makes it even more exciting.
I mean, if you're a high school football junkie, you're heading down to Cedartown tonight to catch that game. And then you're going to catch one tomorrow as well, and just fill your weekend with really solid local high school football.
I think that's another good place for us to take a break, because we've got some more matchups to talk about. We're going to be talking about Calhoun going to Blessed Trinity, Cherokee at Cartersville, Cass is going to be at Rome, and we won't pick this game because we recuse ourselves since we call all the Darlington games. It doesn't seem like the right thing to do. To pick, for or against a team that you're going to call their game. So we're going to talk about the Darlington opening game for this weekend in pretty good depth here in a little bit as well. But we're glad to have you along with us on our stream on Facebook Live, or you may be watching on our YouTube channel. We're just glad to have you with us. If you want to listen to the radio broadcast of this, you can on Fridays coming up at 6 o'clock starting tomorrow on WLAQ, 6 to midnight, high school football coverage every weekend on WLAQ.
Eat it up.
All right, man. We are going to go ahead and take another break. Again, we're super glad to have you with us. Let's hear a word from our longtime sponsor, and that is Riverside Auto Group.
Shop for your next car, truck, or SUV at Riverside Auto Group. Check out riversideautogroup.com today to browse their selection, or visit with them in person at Riverside Chevrolet Buick GMC in Rome, Riverside Toyota in Rome, and the all-new Riverside Buick GMC Cadillac in Cartersville. Locally owned and operated by the Welburn family since 1974. That's Riverside Auto Group. Visit riversideautogroup.com.
I said I wasn't going to do it
couldn't help
again.
himself.
No,
he couldn't help himself.
That's called user error. I hit the wrong button, if I'm being truthful of the matter.
Sure you did, man.
It's an interesting thing that we are taking on here, because I've never produced a live video stream and helped host. Well, I've never done either, but certainly not at the same time.
Right.
Hosted
Well,
a
you're
live
doing a
stream and talked at the
fantastic
same
job, man.
time.
You really are.
It's given me a new perspective and appreciation for what goes into that, for sure.
Heck yeah.
But here we are. We're having a good time. We hope you are too out there in the listening audience, the viewing audience. See, I'm still trying to adapt to all this stuff. New technology, man. It moves faster than my brain does. For real.
We got this.
All right, so we're going to go ahead and jump back into getting the main thing, and talking about some games. And this is one that's been circled long before the season even started to approach. And I know that our buddy Jeff Gable is going to be writing an article about this one for the newspaper, the Calhoun Times. But the Calhoun Yellow Jackets are hitting the road, and they are going to play the Blessed Trinity Titans. And this is going to be just an unbelievable atmosphere for a football game.
Yeah, no doubt about it. And, these two teams might not have a long-standing history, but their recent history is checkered. They've had some really, really good matchups. Last year, Blessed Trinity took Calhoun down at the Reeve, which is not an easy task by any stretch of the imagination. But Calhoun seemed to get better and better as the season went on, and that region was crazy with Hiram stepping up and scoring some big upsets, and it went down to the wire, and then they made a great playoff run. They got hammered by Ware County, but that Ware County team was just destined to win. I think this is going to be interesting to see how Calhoun comes out of the gate. I'm not sure what Blessed Trinity lost or has coming back. I don't follow that program terribly close. So Calhoun's going to have a revenge on their mind, and I think that will help but I'm going to go with the home team. I don't know why. I'm just tossing a coin, and I'm going with Blessed Trinity.
Well, the Titans made an early first-round exit last year. They got a new head coach this year, Ed Dudley. He's coached at Ware, Buford, a bunch of other schools. 30-year career, brings a ton of experience and success to the fold here. I don't know what they have in terms of player personnel, but Calhoun's got some good returners. Quarterback Trey Townsend's back. He threw for over 1,000 yards, I believe, last year. You got Caden Williams. They got some dudes on this football team, as they always do. And I believe Clay Stevenson has just done a tremendous job as the coach there. And let's face it, whenever you're following up somebody like a Hal Lamb, that's a tough job to take on. And I think he's handled it with a lot of class and has just done a fantastic job. So this program isn't going anywhere anytime soon. They're going to be healthy for a long time. And I think they're going to get the season off to a roaring start personally. So I'm going to take the Calhoun Yellow Jackets to pick up the victory. Okay. And my friend, we've got another difference.
There's two.
Yep. So
there's two.
All right, and we've got Gordon Powers, former model head football coach, coached several different schools for a long time around the state and a good friend of the radio station. He chimed in. He thinks Calhoun's going to win the game 21-7, so he's looking for a 2-touchdown victory there. Thanks, man. You gave me a little vote of confidence. That was one of those ones where I felt pretty good about, but that gives me even more confidence.
It's tough. That was a tough one to pick. Calhoun's had a rough go of it early season the last 2 years, and then just gotten better and better as the season's gone on. So maybe I made a mistake. We'll see.
And Gordon threw in his take on the Darlington game. By the way, he's got a grandson that plays for the team. So looking forward to seeing them out there again. And as we were talking to Coach Groves last night, one of Gordon's sons, Bryant, is on the coaching staff again this year. So that's pretty exciting to see. We'll get to see him tomorrow night as well. But I know we're jumping ahead here, but and we're not going to pick the game, but Coach can. Gordon Powers says that Darlington is going to beat Christian Academy of Knoxville, the Warriors, by a score of 28-14. So he's got them winning by 2 touchdowns.
All right. We would love to see an opening win for the Darlington Tigers, no doubt about it.
All right. We're going to go ahead and move on to another game, and this one is going to be the Cherokee Warriors at Cartersville Canes. Cherokee had a tough season last year, 3-8. The Canes went 12-2. Canes made it all the way to the semis last season, got defeated by Warner Robins. Of course, who doesn't get beat by Warner Robins, it seems like. And even though they haven't had any deep playoff runs or 10-win seasons or anything like that in a while, the Cherokee Warriors, in my mind, I see them as a team that kind of has this reputation of a team that could potentially play spoiler to somebody at some point of the season. Do you see it that way? No? Okay.
Not after last year. No, they didn't seem like the same team last year.
Well, maybe that'll be the case. I certainly don't think that it'll be the case this week, though. I think the Cartersville Canes are going to do something similar to what they did last year and take care of business big time.
Look, I got the chance to talk with Coach Foster, and Hurricanes don't reload. They don't rebuild. They reload. And he was talking about how fortunate they are to have a program where they've been able to build the depth that they have at every position. That is not a luxury most high school teams can enjoy. And it'll be interesting to see whose names we're calling out, but I expect that there'll be some fresh faces that are going to turn into stars for the Cartersville Hurricanes. They're going to win this game big.
It's going to be an exciting atmosphere, no doubt. If you've never been to a game over at Cartersville, they get the hurricane warning going, and it's loud, and the fans are obviously super into it, and it is awesome. So that could be one that you may want to circle this weekend if you don't have one picked out to go to, because that's just something every high school football fans should experience at some point of attending games.
And you've got a brewery within walking distance. Drown Valley's right across the street. So if you want
after. Yeah, this is a high school event.
After. So you can celebrate your victories, all I'm saying.
There you go, man. Not a bad suggestion.
Right.
All right, let's see. We've got 2 more games to pick. We'll go ahead and jump into this next one. The Cass Colonels are going to be playing over at Barron Stadium against the Rome Wolves. This is a part of the Corky Kell Classic. I believe they have, 3 games taking place there tomorrow evening, so that's going to be awesome. And this is one of those ones I haven't heard anybody pick Cass, but I have heard people say that, maybe this game is one of those ones that could have some upset potential. I'm not saying I agree with that, but I certainly understand where that theory is coming from and the thought process.
They just fell short. They made a heck of a playoff run. This is a Cass team. Coach Gates has been building this program from the ground up now for several years. And he finally got over the hump last year. They play in a very, very tough region, but they got into the playoffs and performed very, very well against good competition. Now, outside of two seniors that are Division I prospects, he's counting on some young guys to step up, and he's trying to talk to his team. One of his quotes in our high school preview is talking about how there's a lot of chatter about how good they're going to be, but they've got a lot of players that've got to go prove themselves, and they don't need to listen to that talk. They will not back down from Rome. They have to play against some really good teams every season, so it's not going to be a fear factor here. But at the same time, this Rome Wolves team is bringing back a lot of talent from a team that made a semifinal run last year. You've got Reese Fountain coming back, and he's got DK Daniel to throw it to, one of his favorite targets. I think that they're going to be better up front than they were last year, and the running game is going to be more successful because of that. And I just think there is an abundance of talent at Rome that is going to be the difference in this ball game. But Cass will come ready to play, and they've got some dudes, no doubt about it, that can play with the Rome Stars.
I absolutely agree with you. I think this game is going to come down to the depth issue. You're going to see some exciting plays for both teams. I know one of the players you referenced, Sokovie White, is going to Georgia. And I've never seen him play in person, but I hear he's just absolutely electric and was one of those must-see players, highlight reel kind of guys. So really excited to see, the playback of that on television. Devin Henderson, I believe, is still with the team. He was a quarterback a couple of years ago. They've converted him, to a corner. Yeah. And I believe wide receiver as well, right? So he's an excellent player, all that kind of stuff. So they have some dudes, as you mentioned, but it's a depth issue. And not to mention, Coach Reed is an outstanding high school football coach, and I know they've had some turnover in terms of their staff. We'll be talking about Darlington, and, Wayne Groves was the defensive coordinator there the entirety of Coach Reed's career at Rome up until now, so that's an adjustment. He's an excellent coach, and it's obvious why he got his opportunity to go into the head coaching role. So, but they've made some great hires there as well, and Coach Reed, leads those guys at the highest level. So they're going to be well coached. They'll be ready to play. They'll play with an edge. They've got the depth. So I'm with you on this one. I get why, there's some upset thought process in that, but I just don't see it. I think Rome's going to win the game.
We're agreeing on that one.
That's right. We need to take one more break here on the program, and we only have one more game to talk about, which we're not going to pick, but we do have some insight into this one just because we cover the Darlington Tigers and have been doing that for a while. So we're going to talk about that one in pretty good detail when we come back and get ready to wind things down to this first episode of the season of This Week in Northwest Georgia Football. Hope everybody's enjoying the new format and the new digs here in our WLAQ video podcast studio that we've put together, trying some different things and, trying to reach people in different ways. It's a lot of fun.
It is.
All right, let's go ahead and take a break. Again, super glad to have you with us and really, really thankful for RiversideAutoGroup.com being our sponsor of this program. Let's hear a word from them.
Shop for your next car, truck, or SUV at Riverside Auto Group. Check out RiversideAutoGroup.com today to browse their selection or visit with them in person at Riverside Chevrolet Buick GMC in Rome, Riverside Toyota in Rome, and the all-new Riverside Buick GMC Cadillac in Cartersville. Locally owned and operated by the Welburn family since 1974. That's Riverside Auto Group. Visit RiversideAutoGroup.com.
Well, feel free to dance to the music at home there. You may already be, I don't know. But we are back, and we've got one more game to talk about, and then we'll start to wrap things up here on the first edition of our This Week in Northwest Georgia football program here on WLAQ. Again, a show we've been doing for a long time, but just a little bit different platform and format for it this season.
Yeah, exciting new things here at WLAQ.
All right, this next one we'll talk about, won't necessarily be picking this, but a new era begins down there at Chris Hunter Stadium at the Lakeside as the Christian Academy of Knoxville Warriors go up against the Darlington Tigers. We referenced Coach Wayne Groves a little bit earlier in the program, and this is going to be his first regular season game as head coach. Give us your take, Ian.
Yeah, talking with Coach Groves, they had a scrimmage against Sumter last Friday, and he said, I don't think we're going to face dudes like that until the playoffs. If they can make the playoffs like they usually do, he said that those were some real talented athletes that they went up against last week. So that's good. We talked about preparing and playing above your level and taking those lumps and making you a better football team. So they've had their chance to scrimmage. He said he didn't get much tape on this team, but they've got a real big boy, I think a 330-pounder, playing guard for them that I'm sure they'll run behind. He said they've got some talented receivers and a good quarterback. So they're going to have to adjust on the fly because of that limited tape. They weren't really able to scout that much. But Coach Groves seemed very, very pleased with the buy-in that he's gotten from his players. They had their first 6 a.m. practice that their leadership council voted on this morning. I hope that went well. He said they better show up on time or they'll never do it again.
He's a nice guy, but he's a serious man.
Oh, yeah.
So they better show up.
Yeah, no doubt about it. So, it's going to be exciting. It's a home game. I think Darlington has obviously they lost a lot up front. They had one of the best lines of scrimmage in the area, and I don't care what classification you're talking about. They were excellent up front. They were replacing a lot. A lot of guys are having to move into those positions. But the skill players, I'm excited to see Sammy Konchesky chuck the ball around the yard. Demarion Floyd is a threat to take it to the house every time he touches the ball. You got Talon Shirey on the outside. He's an excellent receiver, and we're going to see some other guys step into new roles. I like the Darlington Tigers to go out and show us what this Groves era is going to be about tomorrow night.
Yep, no doubt about it. And, obviously when you're referencing the offensive line from last year, there's not too many teams, no matter what classification you're in, that are going to have, a Gatlin Hancock, Gus Gamage, Bryant Powell, Truitt. Hey, everybody they had, I think they have one starter that's back from last year. But Coach Groves talking to us last night, one of the names that keeps coming up, McKay Rush. He was a split wide receiver last year, and he, stepped up and volunteered to play on the offensive and defensive lines for the football team, and is really, really filling some big shoes and doing a fantastic job. So it's just great when you see guys that say, where I'm most needed is where I'm going to put my effort into it, and we're going to go out there and do what we can to win some football games. And I think they're going to have a successful year. Now, who knows what kind of record we're talking about, all those sorts of things. I'm sure that Coach is not focused on that at all. They're just trying to get better every single week and deal with the team that's in front of them. But I think it's going to be a fun season. I'm looking forward to seeing what they have, and we're looking forward to calling those young men's name and being a part of that. And we appreciate all the hospitality that we've had over the years over at Darlington that carries over into the new era of Coach Groves, which really looking forward to. It's going to be fun.
Yeah. It's Friday nights are upon us, man. So looking forward to being in the booth with you and seeing what this Darlington team can bring to the table. And
one thing that we didn't talk to Coach Groves about yesterday much, and I know we'll probably dive into that and more in next week's show, is special teams. Because, they had a guy, Rylan Scott, a part of the last couple of years team, who just really developed well as a kicker. And so, we'll get into more of that and the nuts and bolts of the team as we progress with that show.
Yeah.
But on that note, we will mention that, a brand new show, if you didn't catch it yesterday, on Wednesdays, Coach Groves agreed to come to the station after practice and join us at 7 o'clock for a live stream, much like you're getting here with this program. 7 o'clock on Wednesdays, the Coach Groves Show on WLAQ's Facebook Live and also our YouTube stream. So if you haven't done that, like us, follow us. Subscribe to us. I don't know. What's the vernacular the kids are using these days?
It depends on the platform.
I got you. Well, we're about to wind things down, but let's review, because you do a better job of keeping up with this than I do. What were our differences this week?
Our differences, I took Coosa to go on the road and beat Southeast Whitfield, and you took Calhoun to go on the road and beat Blessed Trinity, and you were backed by Gordon Powers.
There you go.
So
feeling good.
Yeah, you got a little backing there. We'll see how that all shakes out, and it's gonna be a blast. And I tell you what, as you're following the games, some of them tonight, some of them tomorrow, make sure to call in to the Scoreboard Show and talk with Lynn and Austin. If you are going to any of these games, we love to hear that interaction on that show, and you saw it with your own two eyes, so you can tell us how it went down, and it's just a ball, man. I can't believe we're stacking 6 hours of high school football coverage every Friday night here on WLAQ.
And as we get ready to wrap up, we'll break that down in detail one more time. I guess I could say like they do. We'll post it in the show notes or something like that. I don't know. But here's our Friday Night Lights coverage, which kicks off tomorrow night right here on WLAQ, 6 to 6:45. You can hear the radio version of this program This Week in Northwest Georgia Football. 6:45 to 7:15 p.m. It's the radio version of the Coach Grove Show, which debuted last night. At 7:15 p.m., we'll go live at Chris Hunter Stadium over at the Lakeside on the beautiful Darlington School campus with live pregame commentary from, of course, the two that you have here today. We look forward to that. And then at 7:30, Toe Meets Leather with Darlington football right here on WLAQ. Afterwards, following the game, it's the Rome Orthopedic Center High School Football Scoreboard Show. And if you prefer to watch the game tomorrow, Northwest Georgia Media, Nathan Patterson and his crew are going to be out at Darlington, and they will provide video of that and our audio on the Darlington School YouTube channel. So like we said this morning on our previous show, if you want to follow Darlington football, they're covered.
Yeah, we got you covered.
There's no doubt. But the biggest thing is, and I can't emphasize this enough, get out and support the kids and be at the game and create those unbelievable atmospheres that make high school athletics the best that it can be, because it's about being there at the end of the day.
Yeah, you can always come home and watch it and listen to it again.
That's right.
Yeah.
Well, man, I think that's our time. Any final comments you'd like to offer?
Just wishing every team good luck out there. If they all could win, that's how we'd like it. But somebody's got to lose, somebody's got to win. Enjoy yourself, and it's football time.
All right, man. We're going to wind things down. Thank you for being here. It's been a pleasure for our inaugural edition of the year.
Yeah, I'm glad to be here.